Hi boys and girls, welcome to part 2 of geometry vocabulary. We have some more words to discuss and I'm going to show you some illustrations to give you a better understanding of what those words mean. So the first word that we have, this is all about angles, by the way. So the first word is angle. The definition of an angle is a figure formed by two rays that meet at a common endpoint. And this endpoint has a name. It's called a vertex, okay? So the way to make an angle, and if we were doing this the correct way, we'd be using a straight edge. You'd be using your ruler to do this, but I'm gonna show you without. I would draw a ray. So you remember from the last video, a ray had one endpoint with an arrow at one end and an endpoint at the other. And an angle is when two rays come together and they meet at that vertex, okay? This is actually probably gonna go through the words here, but I'm gonna create another ray that has that same endpoint, and then the arrow is going up this way, okay? So there's two rays, and we could call these rays, we could label these rays with points. So we could call this A, B, this ray, and we could call this ray A, C, okay? So we could say ray AB is intersecting with ray AC, forming this angle. And this is the angle that it forms. Okay, so two rays form an angle. Now, there are different kinds of angles that you need to know for this unit in math. There's four main ones we're going to be talking about. A right angle, an acute angle, an obtuse angle, and a straight angle. So we're going to start with the right angle. A right angle is very special because it has something very specific. A right angle has to have an angle in it that measures 90 degrees. And you're going to learn how to measure angles using a protractor in later lessons. But it must measure 90 degrees to be a right angle, okay? So, and I'll draw you one first. So if we had a ray going up this way, and then my other ray is connecting from that same endpoint, that vertex, okay? The angle is right in here. And when it's a right angle, we use a little corner box to show that that equals 90 degrees. These are actually called perpendicular lines. These two rays that are forming are perpendicular to each other, and they form that 90-degree angle. So in order to make that perfect and exactly 90 degrees, you would need to use a protractor to do that. But for now, you kind of get the idea of what a 90-degree angle looks like. So that is a right angle. The next kind of angle we're going to talk about is an acute angle. An acute angle is any angle that is less than 90 degrees. So this could mean that the angle is 89 degrees. If it's 89 degrees, it's still less than 90, which makes it acute. Usually you can tell with your eyes that an angle is acute. If it's 89 degrees, you probably can't tell and you need to use a protractor to see. But if it looks something like this, you can tell that these rays are closer together, and therefore they are not perpendicular lines and they are not forming that 90-degree angle. You can tell that this here is smaller than what we have here. Now, I don't know the exact measurement of that angle because I haven't used a protractor to measure it, but I know it's acute because I know that that is less than 90 degrees. Okay? Now, the opposite of acute is obtuse. Obtuse is any angle that is more than 90 degrees. So that means an obtuse angle could be 91 degrees, and that would still be considered obtuse. Again, if it was 91 degrees, you wouldn't be able to tell if it was right or obtuse because it's too close. But if it's like 100 degrees or 120 degrees, it would be very obvious to you. So an obtuse angle would look like this. You can tell that the two rays are open quite a bit, are open more than that corner 90 degree there. So I know that this measures more than 90 degrees. Again, I don't know what it measures exactly, but I know it's more. So that would be labeled obtuse. And finally, we have a straight angle. A straight angle actually looks just like a line. A straight angle looks like this, and the point looks like it's just a point sitting on a line, but technically this is a ray here from here to here, and this is another ray from here to here. So I could call this A, B, and then this ray would be A, C. Okay? That always measures 180 degrees. It actually equals 2 right angles. So 2 of these, if I did a dotted line here, you could see I could create a straight angle here out of this 90 degree angle here, and on both sides I would have 2 right angles, which totally makes sense because 90 plus 90 is 180. And 180 is the measurement of your straight angle. Okay? Now lastly, I want to talk to you about some benchmark angles. We've used that word benchmark a lot because benchmark numbers really help us figure out where things belong and how much greater something is, how much less something is. So we have 4 important benchmark angles to talk about. They are 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and 360 degrees. And these benchmark angles you would see on a full circle protractor. So I'm going to draw that over here. When you use a protractor to measure angles, you're going to be using a half protractor, but a full circle protractor would have all of these measurements here. Okay, so we would start at 0, and then a quarter turn, here's your quarter turn, would be at 90 degrees. Okay, so there would be your 90 degrees, and you can see that's a 90 degree angle right there. Okay, if we did another quarter turn, we would be here. And that's 2 quarter turns. And we just talked about how 2 of them side by side would be 180 degrees. So that's 2 quarter turns is 180 degrees. That's another benchmark. If we did a 3/4 turn, we would come out here. So here's a 1/4, 2 quarters, 3/4 turn. So I'd add another 90 degrees to this number, and I would get 270. And finally, if I close this up, went all the way back to the top, that would be another quarter turn. I'd be adding another 90 degrees, and I would get 360. And I know, boys and girls, you've heard that before. If someone says I did a 360, it means they turned completely around. Like if I was facing you and I went all the way around and faced you again, that would be a 360. So it starts off as 0, but all the way back through, we're at 360 degrees.